If you were to ask 11-year-old me what his least favorite OG Trilogy Ace Attorney case was, what do you think he would say? If you stumbled onto this video randomly, you might be thinking Turnabout Big Top, which is of course not the correct answer. And I bet a large portion of you are sweating thinking it's Turnabout Beginnings. And if you're thinking this, you would be correct. In my first video of the TNT reviews, I already told you guys that I'm not a huge fan of the flashback cases in this game. After replaying Turnabout Memories, I have to say, I feel exactly how I felt about it back then. It's not bad by any means, but I don't think it's anything too special. However, Turnabout Beginnings is different. When I played the trilogy often as a kid, Turnabout Beginnings was easily my least favorite case out of all 3 games. I hated it, and there were maybe 1 or 2 other cases in the entire series that I liked less. You guys might be wondering why that is, but we'll get into that later. What matters is how I feel about the case now. First, let's talk about how they nailed the opening cutscenes for this game. I don't know how they did it, but the blue light on Phoenix and the mysterious music playing as he takes a look at the case file builds up an amazing atmosphere. And then you get this beautiful Turnabout Sisters music. What a fantastic way to open the case. Not much later, we start getting some crazy reveals. You get your first look at who Gato was, and realize he's Mia's co-worker, and we also get to face off against Edgeworth. That's right, it's Mia's first case, but also Edgeworth's first case. Oh yeah, we also get Canadian Judge, so the beginning of this case is just awesome because it sets up something completely new. And it doesn't end there. We get more surprises with a young Gumshoe in a different coat, and we hear the last name Hawthorne. Yeah, the beginning of Turnabout Beginnings is no joke, and I do love how we get this reverse perspective with Mia. In Turnabout Memories, it's clear that Mia knows more than the player, but in Turnabout Beginnings, it's the player that knows more than Mia. This creates some nice tension in specific moments, such as when Dahlia Hawthorne appears on the stand and goes by the name Melissa Foster. Now, even after the most recent playthrough of the case, I'll tell you why I don't like this as much as most middle cases, like Reunion and Turnabout, or the Stolen Turnabout. My main problem is that it's mostly just finding contradictions, and that's about it. I know that might sound like a weird problem, because that's basically what you're doing for the whole series. Like, literally the main point of the trials is to find contradictions, but a lot of the thrill of Ace Attorney comes from the story and learning about the characters involved in this narrative. With Turnabout Beginnings, there isn't too much story, and most of it is just finding inconsistencies. Even from a mystery aspect, there's only a little bit of focus on how the crime happened, and it's mostly about catching Dahlia in her lies. I mean, yes, all those lies are necessary to show how she did it, but I just don't find it that fun to point out contradictions so many times for the smallest details to finally get to the end. Like, when you look at the incident in Turnabout Beginnings, it's fairly small. Dahlia pretends to be the victim, and she breaks into the trunk to put Valerie's body there. That's kind of all it is. I like my cases to be a bit bigger. It doesn't have to go crazy with the most insanely crafted mystery ever. In fact, that could make it worse, but a lot of the decently long middle cases and final cases have exactly what I'm looking for. It's why I like the investigation segments in the main games. It gives you time to piece information together, and the satisfaction comes from piecing together what happened. Now, catching people out on lies can still be fun, and it's a part of all the trials in the main games, but I think a big part of the fun factor depends on who you're cross-examining. Take Luke Atme for example. Catching Luke Atme on his lies is really fun because of his personality. There's so much variation in how he reacts when he's caught in a lie. I never really know what to expect with his character. Now, I like Dahlia as a villain. In fact, I eventually end up liking her more than Look at Me, but it's not that satisfying to catch her out on lies because her reactions are always the same. It's going to be this concerned face, and then she switches to her smile, and then she changes her testimony. That's how it always goes, and it ends up being kind of repetitive. We do end up getting some story, but I don't find most of the events of Dusky Bridge to be that interesting. There are some interesting moments. For example, Dahlia jumped off a bridge where most bodies don't even get found to keep a $2 million jewel. That's pretty insane, and it says something about how far Dahlia is willing to go to get her way. Another thing I like is that we get to see the necklace from the first case and the poison taking its effect. We see how the trial abruptly stops, and we understand why Mia was so traumatized. Now, a lot of people find this moment to be very heartbreaking, but I'll be honest, for me personally, this moment had zero emotional impact. You may be thinking, well Derpy, this is your 4th time playing this game. You know what's coming, you're not going to feel anything, you're too spoiled. Even after a 6-year break, it's not going to hit the same. But you see, this is where you're wrong because it hit exactly the same. When I first played the game, I felt nothing at all. And this is crazy because fans often say this is one of the most emotional moments in the series. And I'm not some dude who just pulls off the stone cold Alex Pereira face while I play Ace Attorney. In fact, I'm the complete opposite. I tear up really easily. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think I may have teared up at least once in every Ace Attorney Trilogy case apart from this one, and that is wild to think about. So now you may ask, why doesn't this moment make me sad? And truthfully, I don't have a great explanation. I guess the best I can think of is that I don't really care for Terry Falls. Now, Terry Falls is a hard character to discuss. Clearly, he has some mental issues, and this makes his relationship with Dahlia very complicated. You see, Terry Falls is 19 and is dating Dahlia, who is 14. However, with Terry's apparent issues mentally, I guess it's hard to say he's a bad guy. In the relationship, it is very much Dahlia who is controlling Terry, and the fanbase reaction I've seen to the situation is mixed, but honestly, I feel like it is more favored towards Terry. There are certainly some people who despise Terry and think he's the scum of the earth, but from what I see, this relationship is not looked down on as much as, say, Max and Ben with Regina. Which I think is fair since Terry's circumstances are a lot more complex. To me, this situation has always made me feel uncomfortable. Similar to Big Top, I felt uncomfortable even at the young age of 11, where I really had no concept of you have to be 18 plus. I just wasn't exposed to that yet, but something still felt really weird to me, and looking back at it now, it just feels even more weird. Again, like Big Top, they don't take the age gap very seriously at all. They literally joke about how Terry is robbing cradles, and they kind of just leave it there. So yeah, I think in terms of atmosphere, this situation just lowers my opinion of the case a little bit. So now, let's get back to something I mentioned at the start. I said this used to be my least favorite case in the trilogy. I'm sure everyone's asking, how? Why? What in the world could make this your least favorite case? How could this be worse than the Lost Turnabout? Were you on something at the age of 11? Well, the answer to that question is no, but the reason for this being my least favorite case is actually simple. And that reason is, The fact that I was dumb. Yes indeed, I was so dumb that I game overed over and over again to the point that I was pulling my hair out. I was literally spamming evidence on every statement, pressing all these statements twice, trying whatever I could do to progress. And I wouldn't look up the answers out of pride. So playing the case became a frustrating chore that was also quite boring. So yeah, that's the only reason this was my least favorite case. And after playing this case again, I was flooded with memories about how stupid I was. Even on this playthrough, I got 3 game overs on this one case, which is the most I had while playing the entire trilogy. For some reason, my brain just isn't made for this case. That being said, it's fair to say my opinion of the gameplay in this case has improved by quite a lot. I do find the trial gameplay in Ace Attorney to be quite fun, and that is what Turnabout Beginnings delivers. My previous dislike for this case is on me. It's not the fault of the game. And just to touch briefly on the characters, let's speedrun this since I don't have too much to say. Gumshoe is a delight to see, and I knew he was that guy when he said Mia is gorgeous. Good to see that one of these guys have functioning eyes and isn't getting seduced by whatever this is. Canadian Judge is a delight. As a Canadian myself, I can guarantee you that no one within a 25-kilometer radius speaks like this, but being represented by this guy is an honor nonetheless. Another returning character is Dahlia, and I think she has improved from Turnabout Memories, but only by a little bit. The only thing that really improved her for me was the whole jumping off the bridge incident, which I really liked. I've hinted at liking Dahlia a lot as a villain, but that's mostly because of the next case. She's good in cases 1 and 4, but nothing too crazy. And then we have Mia, and my thoughts on her hasn't really changed, and as I said before, I don't really like Terry. To finish off, we have 2 of the prosecutors, and with one of them, my opinion went up, and with the other, my opinion went down. Can you guess which is which? In 3, 2, 1. Well, of course Edgeworth went up, because it's Edgeworth. He's just too good. He feels like a big threat, and honestly, I thought he performed better than the likes of Von Karma. I feel like this is what Edgeworth and Turnabout Sisters should have been, but that was the first case ever written, so we'll give it a pass. On the contrary, Gatto falls down. He was a great surprise indeed, but I hated how he kept calling me a kitten. I'm not even sure why I hate that, but it just sounds weird, and he kept repeating it like 1 million times. I can only describe it as cringe. I hate using that word, but I don't know how else to describe it. It's honestly worse than Grossberg talking about his hemorrhoids. Now overall, there's not much wrong at all with Turnabout Beginnings. It's another solid case for me, like Recipe for Turnabout, so I'm giving this one a 7. My stance on Turnabout Memories and Turnabout Beginnings is that although they are important to the story and do make the story better, I'm not a huge fan of them as standalone cases. For me, the purpose of these 2 cases is to enhance the final case. Bridge to the Turnabout would not be as good without these 2 to support it, so I do appreciate their roles in the story. With that being said, I think it's finally time we cross that bridge. Next time, we're going to look at the ultimate case of the Ace Attorney trilogy, Bridge to the Turnabout. See you guys in a few months.